So yesterday I was looking through Andrew Tate's videos and I learnt lots about him, just the back history. I had no clue who he was. I had seen a couple of people talk about him. I think it was only a few weeks before, I can't remember. But it was, yeah, he just striked me as a very, very angry, horrible person. So I kind of wanted to look at him because I was kind of feeling like, I don't know, I'm just getting really, really bad vibes from him and I want to know why. I feel like I really, really can't trust people. But learning to tell the difference between people that are good and people are bad, that are bad, I think is something that I think is a very important thing for me, especially if I'm going to be doing things more in the future. And Tristan is his brother, and I feel inspired to want to talk about, or just to learn more about him and give my views. I think I don't think he's a nice person. I don't think he's on my side. I don't think he would help me or believe me. I think he's a very arrogant person who likes to lie and pretend to be doing the right thing just to put others down, to try and build himself up more. And yeah, I think he's not a good person, but he's much better at hiding it than Andrew. He's much better at keeping calm and blending in. If there was a whole bunch of billionaires, some people do bad things but for good reasons, or maybe they did bad things in the past because they didn't believe in a god, and now they do believe in a god, and they now see that there is a chance of fixing the world through both good and bad. If there's people like that, and then they're mixed in with people like Tristan, I'd really like to know that I can tell the difference between the two, and I can't. But I'm doing some research basically, so I'm just going to play a video about him.
Tristan Tate said to me he doesn't do interviews as long as Andrew Tate, and I went and got the longest interview on record with Tristan Tate.
Success is a form of revenge. I think it's the only form of revenge that any man should ever care about trying to reach.
In this exclusive...
Yeah, well, if you're getting success only for revenge, I think... is that wrong? Probably not. That's probably not wrong, because I've always wanted some success for my own joy. But yeah, I want success now for revenge. So I guess that's not wrong.
Episode, Tristan slams the UK.
The UK has just failed. They're not fixing the most basic issues. If I walk down on the street, even with this is a moderately priced Rolex, and I start walking around, there's a good chance that someone's going to put a knife through my heart to take my watch.
Tristan gives an exclusive.
I think that's a very strange comment to make because he's from Romania. I don't think I would feel safe walking down a street in Romania with a hugely expensive watch. I don't think I'd feel safe anywhere. I've been to Thailand for months, and this was 10 years ago, maybe even 15, 20 years ago, but I didn't feel safe holding a large Nikon camera, and there to say that England is just like this is the only place, to indicate that England's so much worse than other places. I just feel like how you feel is more about how you trust people, and if you feel like you might be stabbed just by walking down somewhere in England, I feel like there must be something wrong with you, or maybe you just don't like the people in England. I definitely don't feel like I feel very safe in England. I've been to America, I did not feel safe there at all, and yeah, so I don't know why he would make a comment like that when I don't feel the same way.
Exclusive on who's really behind his arrest, and that the truth will come out.
As soon as the case is over, the entire world is going to know exactly why this happened. Why did it happen? Who set the dogs on me? And I think everyone's going to be very, very shocked.
And he talks about the downfall of the monarchy.
I'm not saying what happened to Harry was okay. What I'm saying is, to subject your poor grandmother to the accusation of racism in 2022, for me, unforgivable.
I don't think the attack was on the grandmother. I don't remember the grandmother being part of this. I remember it being, yes, about his father, but it was kind of mild. But yeah, this is how people like this take the truth, but then just spin it and make it a bit worse. So he was against his family a bit, but I don't think it was about the Queen. I really don't remember the Queen having any involvement in that story. So you've just made it so much worse than it was.
So Tristan, who controls the world?
Oh, obviously, My brother and me, you know, they haven't seen his hand symbol. It's all secret Illuminati stuff, you know.
He wishes he and his brother controlled the world. That's what he's saying.
You know, the conspiracy theorists are right. The people who accuse me of being the Illuminati are right. It's all Andrew. No.
You must have learned, being imprisoned and cancelled, you must have got further up the chain of who runs the world.
Oh, 1,000,000%. 1,000,000%. In fact, going to prison, being cancelled, this attack on me has connected me and Andrew politically on a level that we weren't at before. We've made far more important friends, millionaire, billionaire businessmen, politicians. Lots more people are happy to sit and talk to us, certainly in private, maybe not so much in public these days until my case is over, than ever before. So yeah, if you were to ask me in a very simple term, you know, Andrew uses the term matrix all the time. What controls the world? Money. Big companies, big interests. They can buy governments, they can buy policy, they can make regulations, which are basically the same as laws, and they can get the people to dance when they want them to dance, stay home when they want them to dance, stay home, clap when they want them to clap. And I think money controls the world. And the people.
Do you think that?
You can say that, but okay, there's a lot of truth to it. Money does control. It controls people who want to be controlled by money. That's the thing. You can only control people with money if they want money. And therefore, when he thinks, by people who think that money controls the world, I think part of them thinks that the reason why they think money controls the world is because they are controlled by money. And so this kind of just gives an indication of kind of what he's like. But there's nothing wrong with being controlled by money. You know, I'm not controlled by money at all. If you gave me £1,000,000 to have sex with someone I really don't like, there's no way I would do it because I'm not controlled by money at all. And therefore, if someone doesn't want money, then you can't control them with money. I would say that I'm controlled by desire, will, serotonin, which is like a chemical in my brain, and therefore, I don't know, but people who think that money control everyone, I think are just people that they themselves are controlled by money. But yeah, if there is a God, then God can use people's desire to gain money by testing them to see which direction they go in. But yeah, I just I wish there wasn't so many people that wanted to be controlled by money and just put money first. But on the other hand, guys with money are actually kind of attractive, so there's good and bad.
I think that's right, fair, just.
Yes, I do and I don't. I'm not one of the people out there. You know, you have people who have, I met a man many years ago, played in a band, complete, I guess the word is bum. And he was showing me these documents for a completely new political system he came up with. It wasn't democracy, it wasn't communism. He was like, oh, and this new political system, it would really take off. And I'm like, bro, you play in a band and you live in Eastern Europe. Like, what universe do you think that this is ever going to, even if you're right, even if this is the golden ticket for all of humanity, how do you expect anybody to listen to you when you're sitting there playing in a band all day? So what I do is I try to change the world on more of a micro level. I don't try to change who runs the world, who controls the world, how the monetary system works, how fair or unfair it is. I try to look at the game and play the game as best as I understand the rules. So changing on a micro level can be something as little as inspiring young men to get into shape, to care more about their health. You know, that should, in theory, lower the cost of healthcare for every developed nation if everybody listened to mine and Andrew's advice. And it's the micro level change that I'm more interested in pursuing myself. I'm not trying to run from it.
I think what you're really saying is that you want to make guys just like you, to care about their appearance, to care about money, to care about the things that you care about, because then you'd feel a connection. And I think you definitely have a lot more soul in you than your brother, and therefore I feel like if all the money in the world, all the money that you had was taken away from you, I think you'd just make more money. But if all the friends and family turned against you and started hating you, I think you would feel that a lot more. So I feel like you care about people more. Is what I'm saying.
Office. I'm not trying to change the laws, and the world is set up the way it's set up. So I just try and win the game, as you have. You know, get a bunch of money, put it in your bank. Oh, what's the money worth? What's it backed by? I don't care. I have lots of it, and it can buy real things. It buys real food and real properties and real cars and, you know, real experiences, and it gets you plane tickets and private jets and all the things that you want. So do I really care what it's backed by? You know, it's not an issue that I try to alter, and I never will.
Do you think maybe in some ways whoever controls the world, the governments, the big corporations, they're just running a company like you're running a company and I'm running a company, and if we were controlling the world, we might run the company in a similar way?
I believe I'm a far more moral person than some of the people. So some of the large companies and the people behind them that control the money, I feel like they're happier to flush human lives down the toilet than I ever would be. So when you look at some...
I think if they feel that way, it's because they realise that this world is covered in humans, covered, huge. There's way too many people here. And there is a difference between flushing someone's life down, you know, there's a difference between just reducing the population because there's way too many and making people suffer and stuff. And I don't think this guy would intentionally make people suffer. And I think he's just trying to, I think what he's in this interview, he's trying to make out that he's you know, the good guy, and that he doesn't agree with war and deaths and stuff.
Some countries, Saudi Arabia, as example, that's run like a business, and the leaders and the people sit around, they think, okay, we have this many resources, we have this much space, how do we best make our company profitable? How do we make it safe? How do we make everyone inside of it happy? So as with real companies, I've had good bosses and I've had bad bosses. I think the world as a whole is overwhelmingly, unfortunately, controlled by evil money. And I see that with the wars that happen, the people who die every day, the lockdowns and some of the restrictions they try to put on people, how little they care about the little guy. I would be a far more moral leader. I wouldn't send young men to die in a pointless war. I wouldn't finance wars, try to start them.
I think you haven't heard of the reason why, you know, wars happen because of depopulation, and okay, that they might do it for money and stuff, but yeah, if you know a dog is dangerous and might attack people, you have to put the dog down because it might attack people. If you knew there were people in the Middle East who were developing a huge hatred for the West and for richer people, and just had a desire to want to kill richer people, you know, you would see them as a bigger threat. And I think right now you're more just thinking of your fan base and wanting to say what your fans want to hear. You know, a lot of people think about death and think about war, and the death count is more important than the number of injuries. You know, 500 injured, but there was 20 deaths. 20 deaths, can you believe it? And then they kind of just ignore the fact that there was 500 injuries. So what, 500 people are now going to have to walk around with a missing leg, and you're only concerned about the 20 people that died? Like, there's so false ideologies, and I think death is not the bigger problem. It's the suffering part that's the problem. But yeah, if the reason why that bomb happened was to get rid of the people that are doing what he's doing, but in a worse sense, like gathering up people to have their ideology, their beliefs. You know, a terrorist is someone who has this belief that they need to kill lots and lots of people, and there's a reason why they think this, probably because they're looking at the amount of suffering and thinking we need to do something. And I'm looking at the amount of animal cruelty that there is, and it's making me want to, if I see a dog being, I don't know, forced to have forced to have puppies over and over again until they're like disabled, and then just see them being dragged across the street, you know, it makes me want to grab a bat and whack the person that did that to that dog, you know. And when you've got countries that would see something like this and not stop that person, not care about that, or not care about the dog, and not try and prevent more dogs from being in that position, you just think, well, obviously this country is not being run properly, this country is not being organised properly, and it's causing huge amount of animal suffering. And, you know, these animals are souls that are going to go on to become humans. Now, what kind of human is that going to be if they've gone through so much abuse? You know, I can hate I can hate evil people that want to just kill and hurt other people, but I feel like I know the reason why these people come about is because of that. It starts off as being animal cruelty, and they're feeling this need to want to get revenge, and when they become human, they take out their revenge. And okay, the people at the top don't want them to take their revenge out on, you know, the people with all the money and stuff, so there's a need to protect themselves from these people. But I think to try and just blame it all on one group of people is wrong, you know, because that guy that was dragging the disabled woman that he just got pregnant 9 times in a row, you know, that is an evil person. But a lot of people would love to say, oh no, the only people that are evil are the people at the top, and the people at the bottom, they're just the harm, they're just the innocent ones that just get caught in the bystander. You know, if that man that dragged that disabled dog who he gone pregnant 9 times in a row just to make money off it, you know, if he would have died, he would have just been one more person that people would have said, oh, that innocent man. He's not an innocent person. You know, if you're saying that the poor are all innocent people, they're not. You need to look at what the poor are actually doing. You need to look at the behaviours and the what they do, how they treat your animals. You know, you can tell a good or bad person by how you treat animals, and you can know a good or bad person by what people think when they see animal abuse. You know, if you see that and just think, I don't care, then you are a horrible person. And if you see that and think, this is horrible, we need to stop this, you know, and then you might start growing a hatred for the poor. If you see how the poor treat their animals, you know, you might actually start growing a hatred for the poor, and you might actually have a reason for hating them. And then you can't just say, oh, they're all bad, they're all evil at the top, because there's evil in everyone, and sometimes people are evil because they see evil in others, and they just want to act out. You know, I feel this way. When I see evil people, I feel a desire to want to be evil to them, because that is how they are treating others. That's how they would treat me. And I feel like it's important to recognize the people that are actually evil, and not just clump them in big lumps. And I don't hate this guy, actually. This guy's not that bad. I mean, I think if he was in the right circle and had the right upbringing and had the right things taught to him, I think he'd be a much better person. I can't say the same about Andrew. I think Andrew's just too full of hate, and he probably got his hate from animal abuse. I do still think that. But I've seen him in Big Brother, and he didn't seem to have that hatred then. But I think life was much better for him then, and now that, because I'm trying to analyze people, and Andrew is an interesting one because he has so much hate, and I don't know where it's getting from. Okay, he's probably getting it from people taking all the stuff, trying to take his stuff away from him, you know. But at the same time, if he got his stuff by lying to prostitutes, saying, "Oh, I'll give you 50%," which is actually that should count as racketeering. To say we'll set up a webcam business, I get 50%, you get 50%. They're the ones that are stripping naked. They're the ones that are doing all the work. They're the ones that are building up their profile and stuff. And okay, they're getting a free accommodation, I think. I don't think they're paying extra for the accommodation. But so maybe 50% is more fair because they're paying. But I don't know. 50% I would count as racketeering. Which is unfair business, because really the person who gets all the work should be the ones that get the money. But if he's also paying for accommodation and stuff, I mean, they're living in a fairly nice house, I think. I think they've got fairly decent accommodation. But yeah, because he's been lying to them about paying tax when they weren't paying tax, I think that is definitely a crime. And yeah, is that sex trafficking? If it's 70, if he's taking 70% away whilst and doing it whilst lying about paying tax, then yes, it is, because that money should be going towards paying the tax. You know, these girls are doing the right thing by saying, "Oh, wait, some of my money's been going to tax." And what it turns out that it's going to a guy who's just lying about it. You know, that money should be the government's or the girls, and the guy is lying. And yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if there was some more false dealings going on. But yeah, I don't know the details. It's not for me to look at the details. But yeah, 50. If he's getting 50%, I would say that's racketeering because it's unfair business. But I know though that if someone's like a masseuse was to work in Hilton Hotel or something, they would only get 50% of what they make, or they only would get a small amount. So, but I think that's different though, because these places are expensive to run, whereas a house is fairly cheap to run. Especially a house in Romania, I think the houses are quite cheap there. But anyway, I'm just analysing things.
Or profit, benefit, nothing. If I can end all war and be financially broke myself, there's a button right here I can press. Good, I'll live on the streets for the rest of my life.
I really don't think I don't believe that. I think he's just saying that. But yeah, if you end all war, all that will happen is that the population will start doubling and doubling, and then people will start war again, because they'll be starting to fight over the resources and thinking that there's not enough, or them not having the intelligence to know how to build houses, or them looking at other people thinking you have a lot more, I want a lot more, and then they're going to turn to crime because they can't. They don't know how to get a job, they don't have the skills, they haven't had enough human lives, and they'll turn to the animal ways, which is just, strongest wins. You can't stop war because of that.
Whereas this clearly isn't the attitude of some of the people at the top. They're happy to enrich themselves, enrich their families, and who goes to die? The poor people.
Well, aren't you one of those rich people? Don't you just enrich yourselves, enrich your lives, and yeah, I think you're too happy to blame the people who start wars, but if you were one of those people in these groups that are causing war, you will just be one more of them. You're very influenced by people. You're very influenced by your brother, and therefore you're just putting on a facade. And I don't think you fully understand that wars happen for a reason.
Poor people go and die, and of course now I have some money. But I am essentially a poor person with lots of money. I'm a working class guy. I come from a council estate. It's me and my people who have to march off to their wars and go and fight and die. I said this the other day. I was naming the number of...
You're just saying that because you want people to think that you're just an average guy. A lot of people with huge amounts of money want people to think that they're an average guy. Why? Because this is how people make more and more money, by claiming to their followers that they're just an average. They're just like you.
Children certain UK politicians have, numbers of sons. I can't remember the exact names of the exact kids. I googled them on the spot. I don't know off the top of my head, but it was like, this minister, this member of parliament, all have sons aged 17 to 25. And I said, well, unless their sons are going with me, I wouldn't go, because go fight your own bloody wars. If it's so important, like you harp on about it in the news all the time, or stand in the House of Parliament and lecture people about the importance of these military operations, good, send your own kids. But they never do. I think I know the statistic, during the entire...
Would you really send your own kids? I really doubt so.
U.S. intervention in Iraq, of 545 sitting members of Congress, only one had a child who was in the services who even stepped foot in the country of Iraq, which is terrifying. So I think that leaders should lead their own soldiers into battle. I'm too moral. I don't want to run the world the way that everyone else runs it.
Do you think...
You're too moral. You thinking that you're more moral than them, when really I think you don't realise why wars start.
Because I think about this a lot, because the reason I want to know who runs the world is because I am in the world.
Yes.
And therefore, their decisions affect me. And I agree with you, the best thing you can do to rebel is to get really rich and build your own infrastructure, an ecosystem, of which you are the leader of. But still, those powerful people, whoever they are, make decisions which could...
People who run the world, they make decisions based on what the rest of the world do. If you put a dog down, you can say, oh, the person who put the dog down is the one that rules the dog. Or you can see it from the other way. The reason why the dog got put down is because the dog was acting in a certain way, and the owner was forced to do something that the owner did not want to do to keep other people safe. And therefore, to think that the people at the top are the ones that run the world is actually incorrect, because the people at the top only react on what the rest of the world is doing. And if there are too many people, they will react in a certain way that will help fix that. Although I don't know if they'll see it from that perspective. They might just be seeing it from a greed perspective. But I know God is seeing it from let's find ways or excuses to cause this so there is someone that is influencing things, but how much of an influence she has it's a dependent on what people are doing. I don't want to, there's many things that I don't want to do. I did not want to sign up to have to pay £12 a month for YouTube, but I had to because these adverts were popping up every 5 seconds, and it was getting too annoying, and so I was forced to have to do something I don't want to do. And therefore are the ones with the money the ones that are controlling things, or is it based on, people do things for a reason as well though, because YouTube has a huge amount of computer stuff that it needs to store all this information, and it needs money to build it. You can hate paying tax for road tax and stuff, but at the end of the day, roads won't get built if they didn't have money to build the roads or to fix the roads. So you need to, the more you use the roads, the more tax they'll have to charge, because the more money they'll need to fix the roads. So to see it as there's a bunch of people controlling the world, I think is the wrong way of looking at it. You need to see it as the people at the top, have been put in that position probably because they've been born into the right families, yes, but this is something that only God can control. So if there is a God, then you have to trust that God has put the right souls in the right people, although technically, because the souls would be similar to the parents, there must be similarities. You can't just take people that have absolutely nothing in common with the parents and just stick them in, although I don't think I have that much in common with my parents, but I did in my past life. In my past life, my parents were similar to how I am now, but I've evolved a lot faster than them because I'm a lot older. But people shouldn't just think that there's a small elite group of people controlling everything, because at the end of the day, they're controlling things based on what the need or the demand or how the people on earth are reacting, and they might do things that they don't want to do because they feel they have no other choice.
Ruin my life tomorrow. So I feel like I owe it to myself to figure out where it goes and what got them there if I want to create change. And sometimes I think there's just some evil people, and their family lineage of thousands of years were evil people.
Yes.
And then other times.
But do you actually know those people? A lot of people like to blame the people at the top, and okay, I want to too, because people who have money have a lot of power, and therefore you assume that if you have a huge amount of money, then you can make lots of choices. The people at the top could have easily been able to stop Leo from being taken away from me. They know about me. I don't know why they didn't do it. They could have had the power to stop that, and I feel very angry towards them for not stopping that. The people at the top could have put me on Big Brother over the last 10 years, and they haven't. So, I feel a huge amount of anger towards them because they've had lots of money, so they could have done lots of stuff to make my life better, and they chose not to, and I don't understand why they chose not to. I don't understand why people are ignoring me, but at the same time, I know to look at the bigger picture, which is that they're doing what they're doing for a reason, and if the reason why they're doing what they're doing for a reason is so that I can have a shit life and learn through what I'm going through, I have to look at the positive and negative of everything, and to think that if only you can get into power. I feel like this is a very selfish ideology that a lot of people have. If only I could get into power, I could change things, I can make things better. And then you do get into power, and then you realise actually you can't, because the people at the top are not the people that have all the power. They're just the people that have the money, but at the same time they also have a huge amount of restrictions, because if they just give all their money away to say, okay, let's just not have the war, and then also something else, say if you don't try and reduce the number of people in the Taliban movement, or the ISIS movement, that this ideology that's just going to grow, and it's going to become more and more of a threat to other countries, and then you're just going to have to spend even more money later on. It is like a cancer, if you get it when it's small, it's easy to get rid of. There's this and healthcare have all these checkups and stuff to see if cancer's growing, and you could say that that's a waste of money, but at the same time, if you did nothing and don't catch these cancers, they'll grow and end up costing the NHS even more, because it will cost a lot more money to get rid of the cancer later on, because they'll need an operation. So sometimes catching it when it's small is the best thing, and people should just see things from all sorts of levels and not just brand people evil, especially if they don't even know who is at the top.
Times like politics, I think some people go in with good intent, and then power corrupts, and for them to fit within the system, it changes them. Have you got any thoughts?
Anyone could have power corrupt. Someone who owns a dog and thinks, wow, let's get this dog pregnant and then sell the puppies. Oh wow, £400 a puppy, $400 a puppy. Wow, I've made £1,000. Let's get the dog pregnant again. Let's get the dog pregnant again. Nine births later, the dog can't walk, and it's power corrupted that man. Even though that man has no money, power corrupted him, and therefore, if that man was in power, the same thing would happen. He would treat his, you can tell if someone's bad by how they treat others, and just because someone has more money, that doesn't mean that they're any better than the ones at the bottom.
Yeah, well, it's not just power that corrupts. I think it's actually a lack of understanding of the system. So if we take the American Republican primaries, for example, a lot of people were harping on about Vivek Ramaswamy, who I don't dislike. I like him. But the reason I was Trump should be president guy, not Vivek, is because Trump is now prepared for the enemy he's facing. He was put into office. He thought, I'm the president. I can do what I want to help the country. And he found himself, remember Russiagate, Russia rigged the election. He was fighting this in court for 3.5 years. And it's like, oh, well, okay, it turns out Russia didn't need the election. Oh, time's up. And then he was out. I feel like Vivek could have been blindsided with some nonsense claim. I mean, for example, he's of Indian heritage. Okay, he becomes president. Maybe India interfered with the election. He'd be sitting there for 3 years, 3.5 years, fighting this imaginary case, not getting what he needs to do done. And then it's, all right, time's up, Vivek, get out. So the reason I was a pro-Trump guy is because it's not just about power corrupting people. I think people who get into power maybe don't realize how little power they have in the position that they're fighting for. Whereas Trump now knows the rules. He knows who he's up against. He knows who in the deep state's trying to take him down. So I think he's the most qualified man for the job. So I don't think anyone necessarily gets corrupted. I think that the suits knock on the door and sit down and say, oh, congratulations, Prime Minister. Well, this is the way...
Him chasing Russia and blaming them for something they didn't do for 3.5 years actually just shows that he doesn't really know what he's doing. He's just pursuing it because he doesn't want people to think that he's wrong. Anyway, I don't really know what you're saying, because I don't know what you're talking about with the other guy.
The way it works, and if you don't like it, shut up. That's what I think.
Yeah, so it's interesting you talk about the guy in a band who had a new model of the political system.
It was terrible, by the way.
Yeah.
I looked it over.
Right, okay. But the political system surely is broken. It's not a democracy. It's not of the people, for the people. So, and does it not take a naive, delusional human to change?
Well, yes, it's not of the people, for the people. It's of the money, for the money. And that's the way it works in, I think, most political systems. Most democracies, it's all about the money. And I don't think countries like our country, you're British, of course, really have a chance of any radical change. I really see it, and I see that both parties are center, one center right, one center left. They're basically the same. They argue about tiny little minor differences in and of themselves, but I think money controls both parties. And in the United States and some other countries in the world, you can have a maverick who comes along with a new idea, a new way of doing things, a new way of saying things, and he can be swept into office from relative obscurity. Then he chooses the other people in charge. Systems like England are the scariest, because for all those watching who don't know this, the way that the UK elections work is there's hundreds of mini elections for each member of parliament, and then the party that wins the most seats in parliament gets to form a government, and then they select their prime minister from the people who are sitting in the house. So nobody can come along, not anybody, and just say, I've got a new way of doing things, please vote for me. Vote for me where? Coventry South, Luton North. Then you're a member of parliament. You have no power. You're not directing the government. They're not going to form a government from you. So I look at, what people like Lawrence Fox.
I think I get what you're saying. So you're saying that people in America, someone new could come in and just change everything. I think that can actually be quite dangerous, because they could change everything. Believe hoping that they're changing it for the better purposes, when really they're changing it for the worse of purposes. So that America has more of a dictatorship, like that the leader is not a dictator, but has more power to be able to just change the whole system. Whereas in England, it's more like a community thing, and you have to go up in steps. And because you're going up in baby steps, you allow yourself to be brainwashed into thinking that it has to be this way. I probably agree more with the English system, to be honest, because I would not want to just go into the England Council and change everything. Why? Because I'd be worried that the economy would collapse and things like maybe my ideas and my way of doing things would just not work. So I would be more cautious about not wanting to change things so dramatically that the economy falls apart or whatever. But I think it would be nice if a lot of things could change in England. And it's hard to know. There's so many decisions that need to be made that it's better to be done in a group, and therefore having people being elected into a party, and then the party kind of working amongst each other to decide what's best for that party, and then competing against another party to try and see how their differences are. Is it really right? Is it really wrong? I don't know. I think a lot of money is definitely being passed around, because every day they go in and they make like £400 for sometimes making the most smallest changes, and sometimes not even making changes at all, or sometimes just making changes and then in a couple of months' time changing it back. So I do think there is truth to that, because it's just a money game of I'm making this every time I walk. I would love to see the people in Parliament just earning a normal salary of like 30,000. If there was a sort of 30,000 pound cap, maybe 40, let's say 40. If it was really low and the people who worked in government were actually being paid far less, that would probably be the only change that I would really want to make, because I know people in government can make £100,000, and I think that's stupid considering that they don't actually have that much power. The people at the top like to make out that they have all this power, but at the end of the day, the power is actually the people, and whether or not you can control the people. And I'm definitely suspicious about what happened with the COVID thing. I really think it was killing the older generations more, and I think people were just trying to favour the older people, and disabled and people with illnesses that were, that it was killing off the weaker members. I didn't see any. If you looked at the average death rate of that year and compared it to most other years, it was only a tiny bit higher. Like it wasn't hugely different, and their level of control over it that people on YouTube can't even mention the word COVID without having their some thing underneath it. People are scared to say that word because of the level of control that people have. Now, them doing that has only made me think that it was all fake. That things like this, you can try and control people by saying we're going to stick stuff on your videos and say that this information is wrong if you dare mention the C word. If you do things like that, though, you're actually not controlling people, because you're making them think that they have more reason. You're making it clear that you're trying to control them, and when you try and control people, they get angry and you can't control them. They become less controllable, and therefore the people in government think they have a lot of control and power, but I think they don't really, and a lot of it is just them ending up trying to make money from making all these lots of small decisions, and I would like to see that changed. But yeah, I don't believe the solution is me just going in there saying, right, let's change everything, because I myself don't know much about politics, and the only one change that I would make is that their salary shouldn't be very high, because the people at the top are not the people that are really in the power. They're not the ones in power. They're the ones that are looking to see what the people are doing, because the people are the mass majority, and they're the ones that should be. They're the ones that have the power, because they're the ones that control their life. And if there's a billion of you and 10 or 300 people in the court systems or in the government, there's 300 people in the government and 3 million people in the population, then of course the 3 million people have more power. Why? Because they have power over their own lives, and you can't control their own lives, but you can wind them up by making rules saying that, like, I don't agree with the eBay system. If you buy something, if you sell something online for £3, or say £3 plus £3 postage, and say they just don't like it and they want to return it back, you not only have to say that they make a complaint, say this doesn't look like what it looks like in the picture. Not only do you have to pay for their return postage, you also lose the postage that you spent. So you tried to make £3 and you ended up losing £6, and gaining absolutely nothing. So you've lost £6. You've had to give back the money for the item. You've got the item, but you've actually lost the money. So I don't agree with that system. I think if there's something that's very cheap, and if the people that are selling it weren't going to make that much money on it, I don't think they should be forced to pay for a return fee if the people who bought it just don't think it looks like the picture, or have some stupid excuse, But you can't. I can't change these things, but I think they need to be changed. But I think the point that I'm making is that, what am I making? I'm making a point saying that the people in the power, sometimes people make rules and it's not right, and you need to change it. But how to change it is hard, because the governments would probably say that you should always give a refund on things, and they're not looking at it from a. But if you were trying to make £3 on an item, and you've spent, and then you have to spend £6 on the postage to show it to them, and the postage to get back, and then you don't even get to sell the item because they didn't want it and they returned it. Is that really fair? And it's just because they didn't like, part of it being so cheap is that there's a risk that it might not be the right size, or it might not be right for them, and so. I just feel like some rules are not right and are not working, and therefore the people who make the rules do have control over people, but part of their control isn't based on right or wrong. It's based on, we think this is right, so you have to listen to us, and I think a lot of people who are not in the wrong are suffering because of it, and therefore there is a lot of things that need to be changed, but. How to change it and how to make a fair system is.
Are doing with the Reform Party and stuff, and I'm just thinking, I'd love, not because I necessarily adore what the Reform Party stand for, but I want new faces in our government, and I want new people sitting in those chairs, and I'd love the Reform Party to even find enough people to run in every single little local election in the first past the post system, to absolutely, sweep the numbers, get 200 people sitting in the Houses of Parliament, and at least then we have a new way of doing things. But
I think what I would like, he's inspiring me to say things, what I would like is for intelligence to be valued, for people to not judge people by how someone looks. Whoever's in Parliament, whoever's in it, I know nothing about them. You could show me 100 people, and if I was to guess who is in Parliament, I wouldn't know. I would have no clue, and I'm not convinced that this guy even knows. If I showed him all the people that are in Parliament, would he actually reckon? Does he actually watch politics? He probably watches politics more than me, so you'd probably have an idea of who's in politics, but I would have absolutely no clue. And I would only want to vote for someone if I thought that they were intelligent, and sometimes it's hard to tell intelligence if you don't know anything, if all you see is a picture. I suppose you have to actually do the research. It would be nice for the candidates that are chosen to have a video where you actually get to know a bit about them and how they think. I definitely think you can tell if someone's intelligent by just listening to a 5-minute conversation, but I've never seen any 5-minute videos of any of the candidates ever in politics. Maybe it's just because I've not taken an interest in politics, but I don't know who's in that. I like to believe that they're intelligent, but I would love people to vote people in only if they think that they're intelligent, and if they think that they can actually see the problems in unfairness and see the problems. But yeah, I don't think just getting... Well, that's kind of what happened. A lot of people did leave and got I don't know about politics. I'm going to stop this video actually because it's getting too long now.